Taco Man, burning out you up here alone.
What?
Were you listening to us? Okay, the last game I tried to really get into is RPG. Left me double guessing my sanity.
Yeah, I know.
We've talked about it a few times.
What game?
The Hellblade,
Oh yeah. Okay.
Senua's Sacrifice. Yeah, I want to play that, but every time I think about it, I get a little bit of anxiety.
You should get really high and play it. That might help.
Right. I think that was the problem.
Wait, were you playing it fucking stoned?
Yeah, and Max fell asleep, so I was alone.
Yeah, that's rough.
It's supposed to be played. I don't understand.
Nah, you can pop some mushrooms. That's how it's supposed to be played.
Oh man.
Oh no.
Yeah, no, to do it. Although, I mean, it wouldn't, like, after a little bit, you wouldn't even be playing the game anymore. You'd just be, like, staring at the TV, watching the patterns.
It would be messing. It would be turning your brain inside out, making you think you're actually a sociopath, and you might do something wrong. I did not have a good time with mushrooms, so maybe I'm not the right person to ask.
I always like harken back to like schizophrenia. Some people sometimes you just develop it. Like there's a traumatic event or it's just genetic and it happens to you at some point in your life. Like it doesn't. You're not always born with it. And so I'm always thinking like, what is the thing that would make someone have issues? Would it be a game like this?
So typically, when people
Tiki Taco teaches time. Tiki Taco teaches time. Sorry.
When people develop schizophrenia, like if you have a family history of it, or if you're sort of at risk for developing schizophrenia, it typically happens to you during puberty, or like from puberty to like 16, 17. Like if you're gonna develop it, you usually start having symptoms, or at least noticeable that you're gonna be having it by like 15, 16, 17.
What are symptoms? Do you have something before you start hearing like voices in your head?
I mean, schizophrenia, honestly, is kind of almost like an umbrella sort of diagnosis. I mean, obviously there's very particular symptoms of schizophrenia, but not all people with schizophrenia experience hallucination.
Yeah, I guess what I'm talking about and what I'm paranoid of is the people that are like tormented with voices in their heads.
So, I mean, that is just a chemical imbalance. Like if you experience that, your brain is firing when it shouldn't.
It's hallucinations. That's what it is.
Yeah,
it's just like taking mushrooms or anything else. It's auditory hallucination.
So you think I'm safe to play the game and not?
Yeah, it's not gonna trigger something.
Yeah, no. Like unless you're susceptible to it, then you're not gonna be experiencing symptoms.
Also, she probably would have it probably would have presented itself by now, right?
Right. Like it's pretty much a foregone conclusion. Like if you don't experience symptoms of schizophrenia when up until about age 30, you don't get it. You're like no one's developed schizophrenia without developing like dementia past age 30. So you're fine. You'll be fine.
There's a lot of like chronic illness that is scary, but I don't know why that makes me so uneasy.
I mean, schizophrenia is a maligned disease, like partly because a lot of people don't really know what it's supposed to look like or how you'd be able to help support someone with it. Like people with schizophrenia is Latin for something like it's like shattered brain or like scattered brain. It just really means that the way that you think, the way that you perceive is just kind of broken. It's caused by an imbalance of dopamine. You have too much dopamine in your brain, so your brain is firing more than it should. I mean, it results in a lot of different sort of symptoms. The biggest symptom is your thinking is just fucked. Like if you go to YouTube and just try to look for people with schizophrenia just talking, they will start a sentence with one subject, transition entirely into a new subject, potentially coming back to the first one, and then ending on a whole different subject in the same sentence, and to them it makes total sense. So yeah, I mean, like I remember watching someone be interviewed at like an event, and this person was clearly schizophrenic and off of his meds. He wasn't dangerous. It's not like he was like, hey, this lady right here doing the reports, I'm gonna stab her in a few minutes. Like, he was talking about nothing, and he was very passionate about it. Like, that's
Isn't
what
that sort of the
schizophrenia
scary
is.
thing about it, though? Is they're so scatterbrained, you don't know, they're unpredictable, right?
Yeah, and that's why I think it's a maligned disease, because a lot of people don't really know how to help someone or what it looks like.
I'm not to say that I'm afraid of. I'm not stigma with people like that have it. I remember watching a vlog of a girl in her 20s who openly started to talk about it, and I didn't know that she had it at all, and it just seemed very sad for her and hard.
It's definitely a debilitating disease, for sure, when it comes to mental illness. I mean,
I'm sure.
obviously you have levels of schizophrenia, but someone that has schizophrenia, they tend to go through like waves where they're experiencing symptoms very heavily, and then it kind of just goes away. Their brain just kind of goes back to normal-ish, and then it just ends up going back to being really scattered for no apparent reason. I mean, it's a weird disease. There's a lot of different facets to it, right? It's not like I have schizophrenia, therefore I have hallucinations. I mean, that's one of the symptoms of it, but that's not like it doesn't describe everybody with schizophrenia.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can find some of those things I was talking about someone just talking about with schizophrenia, because it's really like you look at it and you go, something is wrong with their brain. Like, there's no doubt in your mind. You're like, holy crap, this guy is like not okay in his head.
So I can play the game.
Yeah.
You'll be totally fine.
It's not like
you're
the
not
game's
gonna
gonna
start
alter
hearing-
your chemistry in your brain.
Yeah.
You're more likely to develop schizophrenia from getting pregnant or something.
Whoa. Whoa. Are you guys trying?
No.
Oh,
Not yet.
okay. Shooting those hot loads in there?
We'll let you know.
Okay.
What?
What? Say, is it okay if I use that for Tiki Taco Teaches?
I mean, as long as it's clear to people that I'm not afraid of people with it.
Okay.
It is my own like questioning of my own sanity. Like that game, I think you can only really understand if you've played the game and then you begin to like, I don't know, you're like,
hang on, let me
like my brain for like hours after playing that game was like every time I heard my own my self voice in my head. You know your self voice that you hear in your head?
Yes.
I'm like, is this crazy? No, I'm not crazy. It's crazy, but it's not crazy.
You should just read. Have you read any of the reviews for that game, Z? Any of them at all?
No.
They all say the same thing. You should just read the comments and realize that everybody that plays that game experiences the same thing as you.
I believe the people who made the game actually talked with mental health professionals and were intentionally designing a character who could give players sympathy for people who have schizophrenia.
Yeah, no, I think I talked about this before. Like, people with schizophrenia have made comments on the game saying, "Thank you for making this game. You've made my family members realize what I've been going through."
So it's safe, Zay. It's safe. If you feel like you have schizophrenia playing it, you're supposed to, but you don't actually have schizophrenia.
Right, and I mean, it's actually kind of funny. They did. There was somebody that was he was a college professor and was teaching psychology and wanted to teach his students about schizophrenia, and so made them take an iPod with voices and had them walk around with it all day for an entire day playing those voices. Some of them were bad, some of them were neutral, some of them were even good. And then you just had to walk around an entire day with listening to those voices. One person actually like started to develop symptoms after that because that person was actually susceptible to it and hadn't really like experienced symptoms until that point, and then was
See,
introduced
that's what I'm
to it.
afraid of.
But you're 30. You're good. It's not happening to you.
I think she's 31 now.
Like, if you would have experienced mental illness up to this point, you'd have known by now. Like, you can't. Schizophrenia is not something that you're gonna get triggered. Like, it's not gonna trigger you. You're too old.
Okay.
So
Your
you're,
brain is done developing by the time you're like 22, 23, 24.
Zay,
Your
you,
brain
you,
is
you too
Any
old.
other contest, any other context, I'd be offended.
Zay, you too old.
You're too old to be to be crazy.
Oh shit. Oh, good talk. Good talk, folks.
If you put it on the internet, just be clear. I don't want to piss anyone
All right,
off.
hang on. All right. Take Zaya out of context. Make it look like she hates schizophrenic people. Got it.
Well, I mean, you can even put me in context, and I can still unknowingly offend someone. So if I offended you, I did not mean to.
So what were you using to scratch on your desk with? I'm just curious.
There's a comb.
Okay.
Fuck.
Where's this comb?
Take it slow.